movies, I can guarantee you this Bumblebee is amazing. Yes, as you can see, we are today here with the ThreeZero DLX scale Bumblebee from the last night. I am positively surprised by this Bumblebee. Well, how else could it have been? We are talking about ThreeZero, of course. Like ThreeZero always does, I will now give you my closer look at this very fantastic figure. Of course, like any other reviewer, we are going to give a little hint inside to Bumblebee's detail and of course the painting. This Bumblebee is very well painted, and I know of the 3A Bumblebee from Dark of the Moon, and I have to say I have seen it, and this Bumblebee surpasses him in detail and the design. Not from a movie perspective, but from the figure design itself. And by the way, this is built up to move and pose for the individual buyer, because Bumblebee's posing is amazingly done. ThreeZero did a great job. Of course, it is not as good as the DLX gave Optimus Prime from Revenge of the Fallen, as I personally believe it to be the best figure, considering posability, they have ever produced. This Bumblebee, unlike Optimus, has a few places I am very not fond of. They are not hindrance for you to not buy it, but be a bit aware that you have to play around the usual way to pose this figure at all. But overall, be aware though, as good as the possibility is, and I praise it, and as much of it as you see in this little review here, this is not a typical action figure you will buy in any usual shop you go into. This is indeed a high-end collectible figure, many details considering the plastic, having smaller parts that can be taken off, not broken to say the least, but they can be colliding with other parts. As such, paint chipping is indeed something you have to consider when playing with it, and of course be aware that you have to read the manual before you play with this thing, or at least watch another YouTuber that gives you an instruction on how this figure poses, because if you do not be careful with this, you might accidentally break something, and we don't want that, of course. Other than that, Bumblebee points out everything it has to with his design by fantastic coloring of blue, black highlights, and the details he is combining into one single figure. Is very interesting are the little fine details of Bumblebee, giving us everywhere on his body fantastic weathering effect, where intentionally, I will remark, paint is chipped off here and there just to give off this badly worn look that in the movies Bumblebee over time has gotten. So this is very accurate to the movies, and I just love that. It gives just another dimension to the entire figure overall. Aforementioned smaller parts on Bumblebee's armor especially can come off. Certain parts can pop off, of course not broken, they can be popped on very easily, but it kinda annoys from time to time. Other parts feel like a bit fragile because their connection is just a thin thing, so be mindful of that, and as I already said, read the manual before handling this figure. On the point of accessory, I have be a bit disappointed though, because yes, he comes with just necessary things like a few options with posable hands as you have seen so far, his cannon as you can see now, and his hammer, though I could have expected a bit more because, oh no, actually he does have something else, his battle mask. Yes, that was the next point I wanted to do actually. His mask is shit. I don't know who had the idea with the connections to be just a few tiny sticks poking out of the mask to insert it into Bumblebee's face, but this idea is fucking shit. Or I just can't read any Chinese. Oh yes, actually I can read any Chinese. I can't! That's maybe the problem. But the connection is not very tight, neither does it hold very well, and can fall out of the sockets it is placed inside with just a few touches and moving around the head. As such, not the best idea ThreeZero had so far. Everything else sits securely as fuck. He can hold the hammer fantastically, and I have no problems with it letting it stay in his hand. He will hold it amazingly. As you have seen, the arm can be exchanged, as this is the arm he will usually have, so you can plug it in with a metal rod. Of course, this is a die-cast frame like Optimus is, like Megatron will be, so you are for sure safe when just plugging it in and out. But if we even speak about handling the figure like I have so far, of course we have to with such high grade figures, let's talk about what we are actually waiting, and this is the posability. In the possibility section, of course, Bumblebee surprises a lot. As with everything ThreeZero has built into it, we have a decent amount of range. As for such a little antenna can be put inside and be stretched out to have the Bumblebee's usual look. Bumblebee's head is on two joints, one at the base of his neck and one at the head, and can rotate a fair degrees, can look up that far and look down that far, including of course the base neck joint. His little plates here can rotate and move up and down on bob sockets, as well as this little armor piece on his shoulder. Likewise here on this side we have a hinge that can allow this to move out of the way for posability. On the back side, this is a fantastically detailed, and the tires can indeed rotate if you have a bit of force on it, and they feel very like a bit of rubberish. Of course they are on a ball joint, as such can indeed move out of the way and in any position you want. The wings itself inward and can move outward as you wish. Of course you have to be a bit careful because they tend to wiggle out a bit when you move them, but this is just fine. The smaller part of the entire wing of course can move. As such, this little door, part of the door imbued with a screw on it. If you loosen it, you can move it around as you please. And door itself can be moved up and down. This is a bit tight here on mine, so I will not really dare to do anything with it, but be sure it can be moved. I did it, so no worries at all. Coming back to its front, Bumblebee, of course, like any other figure at the size, should be able and is able to do a fantastic crunch. Like Optimus, he has two joints that can do it for him. One on the torso here above, and the other on the hip/waist area. You have to of course get it a good handle, because some parts really do like Bumblebee sting into your finger because they are indeed pointy. So be careful where you grab him to bend this entire upper body, so you do not poke yourself with it. But he's definitely better to handle than Optimus, I can assure you that. Anyways, let's continue. Of course, Bumblebee's shoulder is on the butterfly joint, allowing him to move his arm forward and to a normal position, and of course up and down. We have on the shoulders, if you move everything out of the way, he brings the entire arm up to this position. Of course, be sure that the plate of the shoulder is in between the upper armor plate, so you don't have any danger of chipping or being in the way of any other part. Of course, you have a bicep swivel, allowing Bumblebee to rotate his arm, and I believe he is even a bit more in a range of rotation than Optimus, which is quite a neat thing, and makes me question why Optimus couldn't have it and why the ankle joints on the feet do not have that. Of course, very cool thing, he has a double-banded elbow, allowing him to go a bit further than 90 degrees. Here on the arm you also have a swivel, of course. If you will then bring this armor piece to safety, you can grab it at there and rotate it around as much as you want. Just be careful to not break it, as this is a part that can pop out but is on a plastic thing. But anyways, and as you have seen beforehand, this armor piece can of course be wiggled a bit up, so you have space and can angle it a little bit. As here is the angled version and here is it flat on the arm. Wrist is of course something very cool because Prime has it as well. If you can see, let me show it. Here you can see the wrist joint on Bumblebee. It has a very cool function that you can press it actually up and down depending on the the way you look at it. So you have a bit of range that you can pull in the wrist or stretch it out. Of course it doesn't give you a full rotation or anything, so it is just there to be a bit more friendly to your positions. But overall I would have preferred something that gives the full entire rotation and motion than just that, because it could have used it very well. Back on the torso itself, Bumblebee of course can lean inside to side just a tiny bit, rotate on the upper part and on the lower part of course. These things move out of the way, allowing a bit more rotation on them, and if you do use the butt armor to get out of the way, you can get in more range of motion. At his legs we have, like Optimus, a way of pulling the leg fully down on a mechanism, so it allows for a wide range of possibility. This armor piece on the thighs can be rotated out of the way and even put back in or be pulled out to have more range of motion with the leg. As such, it can move up that far, so the Bumblebee will help me out here a bit by standing on one of his legs by his own. It is very great that he can do that, but anyways, as such, his knee is a double bended knee, so we can expect a lot. As such, one bend on the upper part, double bended joint, so you can have the past 90 degrees motion on it. And on the feet, we have a lot of details below, but most importantly, toe bend, bend on the feet itself. This little side toe can move in and out, and this thing here can also move in and out, but mine is fucking tight. As such, I will not do so because I am afraid to break it in the connection part. And of course, this little thing here can move out of the way if you want to tilt the thing side to side and spin it on its own axis. More than that, this figure can't basically do, but it is very much enough to have in very many amazing poses. My final thoughts on this figure are as following. Don't be shy to play around with your figures. I understand the notion of many collectors. I am one myself, definitely, like probably the most highest form of it. Of those collectors that just are thinking their figures are fragile as fuck, breaking by the tiniest breath on them, but that is not the case. These figures, especially from ThreeZero, their Transformer line, are built very well. They are not fragile things that break. They can fall off, have a bit of resistance to force applied to them, and will not break off easily. And their poses are even going further than you can possibly imagine at first look. As you can even see, Bumblebee stands amazingly on just one leg if you just balance him out. And this pose is just something I very much enjoy because the DLX class figures can do them amazingly. So overall, if you really want this figure, there are many points speaking for it. Articulation, painting, sculpting, and the amazing details ThreeZero put into this figure just speak for themselves, and I don't really have to explain much about it. ThreeZero of course did point with many things: articulation, painting, sculpting, and the small details all around this figure, which give him a bit more personality. The only little things I am really craving are getting a bit bad is just the mask itself, which you will see in a little bit, ankles of the feet, and of course the face that looks just a bit really creepy, if I'm being honest. I'm looking at this Bumblebee and the eyes are just so white, or just you can see the eyes only, as everything else on the face is a pitch black, that it just scares me because it has a soulless look that he might just murder me in my sleep. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you will like this video, give it a thumbs up, and expect more reviews to come, because I do. As I have the ThreeZero DLX Optimus and Jetfire ready to be reviewed, and of course combined into Jetpower Optimus Prime. The review will hopefully drop around next week's weekend, somewhere around that. But other than that, enjoy the little thing I have prepared for the end, and have a good time. Bis bald.
Bruh. Subscribe, motherfucker.